Okay. Do I have that app on here? Okay. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the pre-work? Huh? Oh, you're right. I know I was forgetting something. Oh, it's already up here. Okay. Any questions about the pre-work?
My question was, when you're downloading the npm install tailoring, tailoring only affects like CSS sheets, or does it like connect to HTML? Like what is it just the CSS styling on on website?
Of a website. So it's just, you just consider it like how CSS is, right? So it's being imported. So when you see in when you were setting it up, you had to import it into your CSS style sheets. So
They importing when you do the import.
yeah, it's import it's so anything that's important in that style sheet that you import Tailwind into is using those Tailwind uh, uh, configurations.
It was the import tailoring on my CSS.
Yeah.
And there was that byte config.
Yeah, the because it had you put in the right config as well. Yeah.
It's all like it's like its own file, right? Byte stuff.
Yeah. At the vite.config.js. Yep. Perfect. Okay. All right, so for this one, I know we talked about U State last week, but we're gonna get into a little bit more of it. And another hook, native hook that comes with React is use effect. So we know use state is used to update, like a local level state within your component. So if you have, for instance, like a counter app, you you would create a use state for the account and then update the count by setting it to the next incremented value. And then, well, another one, we're also going to go over local storage as well. So local storage is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to store data on the client's computer or client system. So for instance, it's going to be specific to the browser. So when you go, if you go in and you store on local storage account, when you refresh that page or come back to it, it should persist. So it should remain, the account should be the same. So we're going to get some practice with that as well. And then by doing that, we are, oh, you're fine. Let's see. We are going to build a simple counter app, and we're going to use our existing static site that we built yesterday, or not yesterday, last week. So we're just gonna add a little counter to that. And then we didn't talk about use effect at all last week, if I remember correctly. So I'll go over use effect real quick. So what use effect is good for is if you have, so one of the main things that it could be used for is if you have something that you want to run when the page loads, you can put it in a use effect. And well, I guess I should go over what makes up a use effect. So use effect is you have your use effect function and you put your code in your use effect. And then after your use effect object or function, but you have this array. This is a dependency array. So the dependency array is what your use effect is going to monitor to determine when it should run. So an empty array lets it know that it should run when the page loads. So that's a typical use case you'll see for it. You'll see where page loads and then you don't want it to run again. So that's telling like if you got a function in there, something in there that might, if you just had it run, it might run infinitely and it'll just keep running and running and running. You can use a use effect to manage that to make sure it's just not constantly running. So you might notice that like you might use a function or something and it just keeps running and running and it's like an infinite loop, right? Use effect could be used to prevent that. But however, use effect with the dependency array, so the dependencies, like I said, use effect is monitoring those and it's using them as a trigger, right? So let's say we wanted this to update every time that we run and that we update our count. So it's looking for that when that value update, it's gonna run again. So if we were to hit our count button, the use effect is gonna catch that, and then it's gonna run all this code in there again, right? So a use case could be if you had like a shopping list, right? And you wanted something to happen every time you add something to the cart. If you add it to the cart, you might want to go and run like an API and go fetch something, which would be a little excessive in that case because you don't want to run an API every time you add something to the cart. But it might evaluate you might run a function that checks to make sure that that checks an external system to make sure that that item is available to double check like your inventory, you know, if you had like another system that managed your inventory. So that's like a real life use case that you might see or that might be done. So does everybody get the basic premise of a use effect? Most part, yeah. You'll get more. We're gonna get some hands-on experience too. So it's always gonna have this makeup. So it's gonna be the use effect, and then it's gonna be parentheses, close parentheses, and then like an arrow function almost, and then the curly brackets, and then like I said, it's basically, so it's a function, and then you have your dependency. So you have your function that you want to run, which can have multiple functions in it. You can run other functions. You can declare variables, all that stuff. So as you can see, when the page loads, it's going into that local storage. It's getting that the current count that's saved to that client's computer. Then it is saying if it saved the count, it's going to set the count, and it's going to parse that number. And then right here, like I said, with the MV dependency, that just determines that it's only going to run once that page loads. So anytime you refresh the page, it'll run. And then we also have another use effect. This one is the set item. So local storage dot set item. So the local storage is basically it's like the window dot local storage. So that's telling the browser that it's basically an API for the browser, right? So the browser has its own API. So the local storage um, is the storage API. So that's why you got the .get item. So you're going in there and you're getting the item that's declared as name count. So and then so if it's saying that was it? Yeah. So if save count, let me go back. If save count is gonna set our use state count to what's already in storage. And then so with our when we update it, we got our set item. So we're setting our storage count to whatever the current count is. So and then we're checking that, and we're doing that every time that the count is updated. We're updating local storage. We get that. We have a basic understanding of that. I know kind of a use effect. So it is what it is equivalent to if you have a variable. So let's say you have like we were to do a constant just count, right? Without the use effect, it's equivalent to you updating that count, right? So being like count +1 or plus whatever that you're doing to it. So you're basically setting it, but use effect is just will you or no, I'm talking about use state, sorry. Use effect. So it's I guess you could consider it's not, I wouldn't say an event handler because it's monitoring to an event, right? It's responding to an event. It may not necessarily handle that specific event, right? Because they can have processes that are separate from that event with the dependency. So it's count, right? So we can do, for instance, if we wanted to, we can do for a count, we can put it in here, whatever our code we want it to be. You can be like, for every time the count updates, generate a new cute kitty picture, right? And it might change the picture on the web page every time you update the account. So it can have a completely different process. And the only relation to that other event would be that it's the dependency of this use effect. Does that make sense? So it's not an event, it's more like an event monitor system. So it's monitoring specific items and then responding to when those are updated. And then there's you can't put a use effect in a use effect because then that'll cause an error. So that's one thing. And then there is something else. I'm sure I'll remember as we were going along. Huh? No, I was thinking there was like something that you couldn't do regarding use effect. I know you can't nest a use effect into a use effect.
If you get an error that React is mad about, if it's like a specific React error, React gives you a link. It'll say that there's a React error, click this link, it's a React link. So you click the link and it'll tell you, it'll go open a web page and say specifically like, you know, you're trying to use an object in your data set, so whatever. Like it'll be very specific to that. So if you did a use effect side use effect, it would say then it'll get error.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's still used, but I know React as I'm pretty sure it's still relevant, but React has its own dev tools within the Google, like where you go to see your console log. React has its own dev tools that you can access as well that you can install into the Chrome browser. All right. Any questions about use state or use effect or local storage?
Right on the board, I can't read it, but take a picture of it later. The 3 different types of use effects, so the 2 that you remember, and then the third one is if you don't have a dependency array, it's going to trigger out every window.
load, assuming it's only getting called when that's inside of it's getting rendered.
So, yes.
So is there ever really weird scenarios? I guess what order does render components? Is it in order to put them in your app JSX? I'm just wondering like if our counter here depended on something else because we're accessing the local storage, could it ever get a weird scenario where we're trying to get like a variable before it gets updated because it's not rendering.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying like, if we had like a local storage and we had another component that was accessing that local storage to like retrieve the account, and then we had that component above this component, and if it ran first, could it mess it up, like, and then cause issues? That is always a possibility. I'm trying to remember. Do you remember? I don't know. React. I don't think.
It's really, it's about the parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
So if you had like a third, like a grandchild, say, and it tried to access the account before it was rendered and bubbled back up, it would cause an error. That's when you're going to use ternary operators and there's a word for it, optional chaining, same kind of thing. So you do like, if it was in an object, it'd be like object question mark dot whatever the property is in there.
So typically, I'd say the best practice for that, if you were going to have a something like another component that was going to access that local storage, you would typically want to take that local storage and get that value and create it its own variable for that, so you're not directly affecting it, so that whatever value you pull from the local storage is contained. And then within that component, so any changes that you, like if that component depends on that local storage, chances are it probably shouldn't update it as well. But you can have it declared as another variable, use that variable, and then once it's done and it needs to update something, it has a specific process, then because those two components, whatever the requirements are to update that local storage should align. So that just comes down to having like the, good practice, making sure that your code is very intentional. However, we're gonna go over something as well that prevents that, because there's another option for that, because using local storage can get a little messy, especially if you're trying to modify it from different like components and stuff like that. So you want to be able to track that. So there is another option. I mean, local storage is really good, but we do have other options that we can use that will help with that as well.
There's two lines of thought. There's something called control components and the control components. I don't know if we're gonna go deep into that.
No, you go. Yeah, you go.
So the idea being all of your, if you're doing control components, your idea is to keep all your state within your parent. And so then you would pass down functions like to update the state, and then you use it in the child, and then so it's going to bubble back up to the parent and only change the state there. So you have that control component that you're controlling all state there, right? So these guys can't really do anything except for try to call the thing or anything. And some people like that. Some people want the state as far down as possible. So it's just like if the count is only going to affect this grandchild, then you keep the state right there. It probably depends on the project, what you want to do with it. Got two.
Yep. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess the one remaining thing is, so React will render the components in the order we put them in.
Yeah. So it's always going to go like parent now. And I do want to say, earlier, you said page load. When we're thinking of React, we're thinking about components. Like the page it's gonna load initially because it is an HTML page. But the components are, when they re-render, that's like they're flipping your mind. Like that's what we're concerned about, is re-rendering components, not about the page load.
So this use effect, is that on the pre-rendering component or the, is this package?
So no, so the use effect is triggered by that dependency, right? So if there's nothing, or if it's an empty one on that render of that component, it's gonna go one time. If there's a state change, like the second one, it's gonna re-render the page based on that state change.
Any other questions? Okay. So what's that?
Just to button that up. So if you think about it, if you have a child that has a state on it, so if you have let's say you have like a box that has an ad, right? And every time an ad changes state, it's gonna re-render, right? So you would just re-render that little box, not the whole page. So in that case, you would probably keep the state in that box, because you don't want the whole parent to re-render, you just want that little box.
Use effect counting every time that box, like in the same scenario, you would update that counter every single time.
Yes, yeah, if you're changing that variable. Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to go ahead and access our static site from last week, because we're gonna add a little counter into it. And then we're going to, okay, I hit the wrong button. Add a counter to it with a use state, use effect, and access it using that local storage, storing it and then retrieving it.
Everyone remember how to run your React app? How to run your React server? No, where can you go? Where do your scripts? Back to JSON. If you look at the scripts, it'll say, should say dev, and then have a colon or something. So anytime you indicate run, and then something in that scripts, that's right. See the dev dependency.
Okay, now what happened to my static site?
You can make your own scripts in there. Like I think I said before, at work, we have a script, because our front end and back end are on different projects. And so it will go in, build our thing on the front end, and then it will remove a folder on the back end and then put the new folder there. And that's just in a script. So it's just kind of, just like it's all terminal commands, right? So it's just a long string of terminal commands. You could be like npm make happy cat or something, and like have it make a cat. Pretty cool, just little programming stuff.
Okay. My static site is MIA.
No, you're using Mixmaster. Yeah, you do know this.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the config for Python. Tailwind itself is. Yeah, Steve. That was just better. Oh, I think you're not.
That's what it was.
You put the import tailwind at the top of the schedule file.
Yeah, it goes there. Let me see. Oh yeah, I haven't installed it on my static site. So, yeah, I did that intentionally and then I forgot.
Very
It's
good. Oh, part of the plan.
all part of the plan. Is there any way to hide this? Okay. Perfect. All right. So we're gonna go through and because we're gonna have to install CSS on our static site, right? So we're gonna do that again. So one thing you want to keep in mind is when you are using different frameworks or libraries, there might be different compatibility requirements that you have to consider when installing anything into that project. So you might want to check with anything that you're using. Might want to check its documentation to see if there's any specific instructions that you need to consider for instance, with Vite, since we're using Vite, we're gonna install Tailwind CSS and then also at Tailwind CSS /Vite. So we'll go in, and this is my static set. Install. Oh, I guess I should zoom in. Okay. Can y'all see that okay? I already installed Tailwind, so we're gonna do it. Yep. I'm gonna do it. Tailwind CSS /Vite. So it'd be install Tailwind and then you're gonna install at Tailwind CSS /Vite. So if you're installing multiple packages at a time, they're just separate. Each package is separated by a space. So we npm install. You can install multiple packages in that manner. So we got that installed. So we're gonna configure our Vite plugin, which is our vite.config.ts, as indicated here. So we're gonna add our import Tailwind CSS from Tailwind CSS /Vite. So here's our Vite config.
Installing, you have to leave your full name on static folder, right?
The static, yes, yes. And you're gonna want to be in the root directory of your project. So that's how you want to consider the root directory, which is the very top level of your project. Did mess it up. And then a good way to do things to make sure you put in, you can just copy and paste. And then so our plugins, it has its array. We already have an item in that array, so we can just add Tailwind CSS. And then you want to make sure you got the open and close parentheses. Are y'all able to see it good, or do I need to make it bigger? Is that better?
One more, we're almost there. That's better.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Of course.
Old lady eyes. Oh, so you're doing that, you're not doing that in the terminal anymore, then. So after you
So-
install Tailwind CSS at Tailwind CSS /Vite,
Uh-huh.
now you're opening up the config, the Vite.config file, and you have this.
Yes.
Okay.
So typically that's gonna be the process. You're gonna install your package, you're gonna configure it, and then you're gonna use it.
Right, cool, thank you.
We gotta do a little bit of work sometimes, you know? Not everything is plug and play. We got it configured. Anybody running into any issues? Okay. Now we need to import our Tailwind CSS. Oh, we give it a couple more minutes.
Did you there yet? Where we're putting the import?
Oh, yeah, we're on that part right now. Okay. So if I remember correctly, no, you're fine.
If you didn't put here in that sentence.
Yeah, sorry.
Hey, Eric.
Yes.
Are you having them install Tailwind?
Yes.
Just like. Hey.
Of course.
I'm wondering if I did that on my terminal, like when you gave us the slide stuff.
Mhm.
Do it again on PS4.
Do which part?
I kind of did it before.
The Tailwind?
Yeah.
For the static site?
Oh,
So this is for the static site. So it's like a package. So you have to install Tailwind for each project. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good question. Okay. It's on the terminal.
So and then for your import, it's if you're gonna have the index.css and the app.css, I like to only have one CSS file, especially if you're using something like Tailwind or something like that. But like I said, a lot of these things is going to depend on the type of environment you in, the structure that they use. They might have two CSS files. I typically only have one because I like it to be consolidated on, and then I don't like confusing myself, having to decide on where my styles are living. But if you're gonna have the two, as you can see here, the main.jsx is importing the index.css. So we're gonna want to go with that one because that's the one that's rendering, that is accessing our root element. And that way, if we have anything, for instance, if we were going to be styling anything that was going to be outside of our app, like maybe possibly like a header, if we wanted to have our header live outside of the app component, then an index CSS will be the best bet. So we're gonna go ahead and add the import Tailwind CSS. Wrong button. And then for this one, it's important that you make sure that your imports for your CSS, anytime you're importing these styles or plugin, you want to make sure that it's at the very top of your CSS file because it matters in CSS.
So your, I'm sorry, so your
Yes.
import Tailwind.css is in which file, index dot?
The index.css, which is the one that's being called by your main.jsx, is the very top level CSS. So that's the one that's gonna ensure that all your complete application is being covered by Tailwind.
I think sometimes people separate it, like in your index.css, like
Mhm.
it said, it's gonna, anything in your app is gonna like the, I don't know, like the layout, CSS stuff, right? And then you would have app.css specifically for your app.jsx. And then you may have a CSS file for like every one of your components, so it's specifically specifically styled for that, right? Now, some people will just have the two, and everything in the app.css would be like component styling, and then the index would be kind of just everything.
Yeah.
Makes sense? This is kind of what- And then, like Derek said, sometimes you just get rid of app.css, use index.css for whole.
I was gonna say, so you cleared out your index dot CSS and moved things over, right?
Mhm.
I got stuff in mine.
Yeah, so it's typically when I initialize the app, I clear everything, because that stuff that's in there already is what's pre-populated from when you initialize the application. So that's what made the Vite React demo application that was already there. That's what made it look so good.
Okay, gotcha.
You getting the error?
Oh. Yes, right, yeah, just being there.
Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and run our application. Okay. And then we'll do an example on our body component. On that first div, we can create a class name. Now, if you remember that Tailwind it's set up with predefined classes that style your elements for you. So we're going to well, before we get into that, I do want to tell you some best practices with Tailwind. So when you are searching for styles on Tailwind, there's a lot of styles, and you're to an extent having to relearn like CSS, because you're gonna have to get used to the way Tailwind does stuff. So it has its own format for basically each style. So one of the things you want to get familiar with, especially like in any documentation page, is using like shortcuts, because with Tailwind, you're just gonna have to search for everything, right? So On Mac it's Command K, and then Windows is Command or Control C, and then it pulls up the search for you. So let's say we want to look up the background color. And then, so Tailwind has it takes you to the background color. And as you can see, it's a little bit different because it's not the typical background dash color, right? It's BG and then whatever value you want. And React also does its colors, not React, Tailwind does its colors in shades basically, right? So you see we have red, it starts off at 50, then 100, and then it's 100 increments after that. So BG red 100, and it has different shades. So for our body, so, and then also with the colors, one thing to keep track of is like for black and white, it's just black and white. But for any other color, it's like white, red, gray, anything, you have to have that number or else it's not gonna work. So you have to have some number behind it. So we're gonna do red, and then we're gonna start off with 50. Wrong one. And let's see what happens. Does it look different? Maybe barely, maybe hard to tell. BG red. Well, it would help if I was in the right page. So, and then basically that number, the higher the number goes, the darker the color. Is it working correctly for everybody? Any? I think. Yeah, you see your React import, so you need to import React. Yeah, anytime it says it can't find anything, then chances are it's missing an import, or the import is formatted incorrectly. And then you're gonna want to put your Tailwind CSS next to inside of the array.
It looks like you try to do it small. That's possible.
Yeah. Anybody have a chance to play around with Tailwind throughout the week?
I'll look at it a little bit for that.
Do you use any of the extensions for Tailwind?
Do what?
Do you use any of the extensions for Tailwind. I installed, few of them, I installed Tailwind, IntelliSense, and then Tailwind Docs, and Tailwind Pulse. So that you guys install.
Yeah, so
It's pretty good. I'm just having the option to just
So these
have
are
it here.
outside, project two outside. So you can.
Yeah, that was-
That's the Tailwind Docs.
Tailwind Docs. That's cool.
Hey, Derek.
Yes.
So I didn't, I'm just not catching up, so I lost everything. Hopefully you have, that's what I lost. So,
Oh,
I'm missing,
So that's
so
inside the project.
I might have something
There's one thing.
out of order.
Yeah,
You want to delete?
The go-to part,
Okay,
and then where's that style?
okay, just delete that.
Delete the whole.
Yeah, this, yeah, that's the thing, you have to make sure inside the project before you run
That's it?
it.
Wow, okay.
The brackets, if you have the open close over here.
Were you still on the body?
Yeah, we did the body and the body.jsx. Why am I looking at the screen? Very comfortable with kids in the class. And Steve brought up a very good point. There is a Tailwind CSS docs extension, so you don't have to, you can keep it in VS Code and you can reference the docs that way. Let me see.
So you just added that class and it's supposed to be your red background, or did you do something in the text?
No.
Just that?
You got all the.
I mean, I did A1 static, make sure I was there, and then I installed Tailwind at.
You gotta add it to this. So,
Yeah.
Inside the
yeah.
square bracket. Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I missed that part, I'm sorry, thank you.
Does anybody have any problems?
So is this kind of like, in a sense, like how Bootstrap already has like preset styles, Tailwind has preset styles, and it works with React
Yeah.
in that way?
Yep.
Basically, pick your flavor.
Yep.
Like, if you don't do raw CSS, Tailwind, or
Bootstrap.
Bootstrap, most like experienced developers prefer Tailwind, even though it's like more verbose, there's more to it. It's cleaner at the end of the day. But that that still doesn't knock on Bootstrap at all. There's just some people prefer one over the other.
You can mix and match both, though, right? Like raw CSS and
so-
Tailwind, or no?
You could, it's just more work than it's worth.
Yeah,
To compile it or something?
you're kind of asking for problems.
Yeah, but they don't really work hand in hand.
But there'll be plenty of instances like where you use one, like depending on where you're building, one is
where like most of what they build is online, and they like to use, how about Bootstrap? They prefer Bootstrap over Alloy, because it's kind of perfect for that. And then for like most kind of more advanced stuff, Tailwind is the way to go. And then there's some people that are just like, no, I'm good with just normal CSS. Yep. Either way, CSS is hard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's free.
Just out of interesting. You know, some error. What's your language?
I don't know. So that means is your body file? It's trying to find your body out there, but. Oh, go to your app project.
Doesn't go folder.
Yeah, it's not in the normal folders. So move the component. The component, yeah, the word, just as component, just remove the word component.
You see, you have yours on the assets right here. You have a folder components and you have your size components.
So these are the-
Also for the body. Like you have your body inside assets. And that's component from body.
Oh.
So it's looking where you have that folder.
Check it. If that works.
Like
Get that
all the
slash.
right is more inside the folder.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. I mean, you could do it like that, just get the color. Probably the same thing with the car data.
It's asking, it has to be in the assets. Right?
So go back to- So car data, see car data is still in the same source folder. So you need to either update the location, change where the card data. So you either in the, it's being called, the card data, so being a code card. So, it's being called the body.
It's not a mass.
That is.
Put the card data inside the assets folder, not inside the component folder.
I had it in the assets.
Any specific reason or?
No, that's just where, I just wanted to put it, so there's no real specific reason, it's just one of those preferences things. Just take the forward slash.
Oh, yeah.
So, so you. Yeah, so that's. Go to the card data.
Yeah.
You're on. I was thinking.
No.
Still, you try to bring that in. Oh, okay, it has that.
So Rick's all got.
Probably.
Oh. Man, I'm bringing it. Do you see it? Yeah, it was, cause you had card and the file was coming out of it. Change the cards. It might be reset, try to get it.
Oh, I think he updated this after posting that.
Some of the styles in there are not.
Oh, not, oh.
It's okay.
No.
I'll remember.
So go to. Go to.
Hey, yes.
Where did you delete that last?
I forgot. I know it's a style. And oh, go to card.
Yeah.
Card. Now style.
Style.
Delete the whole thing. Style.
You don't know, kill it.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The what?
Do you have your card data? You're using that card dash data?
That's why we get the error.
It's just not displaying.
Oh, wait.
Do you remember? It's the folder, components, it was made by itself, or did you create, it's a folder that you drop in?
We created a folder that drops one. Let's say.
She was good.
You just copy it, you have to go back and just check everything.
Oh, no,
Yes, it's, you know, it's this. Extension is. like when you start adding a lot of stuff, it's like big, highlighted by itself.
Hey, how you doing there? Cool.
Like, man.
It is, technical
That's what my coworkers call it. Because we used to do something like just with project, and like something right. They call it cow, we could just call it black.
Okay, everybody good to go? Ready? Okay. All right, of course. And then you can change your color to whatever you want, or just get rid of it. Cause we still gotta build our counter app really quick. Not really quick, but so we can get a better idea. Probably should have did that and then worried about Tailwind, but that's my fault.
Yeah, I think about down there. Is that a MagSafe charger?
Oh, no, it's a,
It's the fat one though, right? Oh, no, it's, okay.
yes.
I didn't know the MagSafes work faster. I didn't know that. I never knew that.
No, what about that?
Say what?
Mine's Max. I think they were Max.
Yeah, well, you can buy those. I think like whenever you buy the regular MagSafe. But you can apparently, yeah, they charge like that. I guess it makes sense. I think they cost like a little bit better.
Thanks, that's not what I wanted. All right, and then for now, we are going to go ahead. And then we're just gonna comment out our card components, so the card data that we're mapping through. Oh, I did it wrong. I missed. We're gonna comment that out because we're gonna create a new component. And just be counter.jsx. Then it's gonna be export default counter. Remember, it has to be a capital counter. Oops, and the function. Don't forget the function, like I keep doing.
Created a counter file.
A what?
Counter the JSS file.
Yes.
And so if you'll notice so far, they're just kind of going through the same flow each time when he creates a new component. So that kind of helps build across some of those. All right, new component, what's it gonna be?
Mm-hmm.
I'm always gonna basically do this, but just swap out my function keyword after function. It'll always be export default function, whatever you want to name it, whatever graphics, like, you all almost all that same syntax.
Yeah. That way, the only thing you have to worry about is what you're gonna put in them. You don't have to think about. It makes it easier to focus on the actual task at hand. So we're doing our counter app, our counter component. We're gonna need a couple things. So does anybody remember the hooks that we're gonna use to keep track of our state? The one that we're gonna store our count in. Yep. Yep. So we're gonna import a use state. And then, yep, the use effect. From,
Y'all know what hook means? When it says we're gonna use this hook?
I was just imagining.
No, that's
So-
process.
what is it? So I'm, okay. How to explain it? How would you explain it? I'm horrible at
So
explaining.
hooks are, they're basically built-in functions in JavaScript or methods. You can also
Yeah.
make your own.
Yes.
So they're like basically when you import with the curly brackets, that's called destructuring, right? So this is taking from React use state and use effects functions that come from there. So they're like pre-built functions basically to do a specific thing. And like kind of like you said, the hook thing, I mean, like they let you hook into special things that React has.
Oh, and then, yeah, with that, React also understands with the custom hooks, React understands that when you use, like, if you create your own custom hook, like for instance, you were to do like use count, React understands the use keyword and understands that you're trying to create a hook. So it treats it appropriately and it'll, what's the word? It'll basically recognize that and treat it as such that way that it works as intended, because React is pretty good in that way. So that's something else that you can consider. And then I'll send some more documentation on that as well, because it does the specific things for it that I just can't remember off the top of my head. So we got our use state, our use effect. Let's go ahead and use them. So we are going to create count and then set count.
Anyone explain what that line does? What it means? Break it down.
Sets the initial counter value to zero, that's its initial state. That way it waits for that. Listener effect type thing to make the change.
So
Is that roundabout?
So,
The first part.
yeah, you're kind of mixing use effect and use state. So, yeah, you're right. So it's declaring, so this first one is declaring the value or the variable. And then this is the variable to set the count to update the state. So like, if you were to do anything like, you could do set count, and you could do something like, count plus 10. So that's gonna update the count value. So set count is gonna set that. It's gonna be equivalent to doing count equals count plus 10, basically. That's just the basic explanation of it.
One thing to keep in mind with state variables is you don't want to directly update the state variable. So you wouldn't say count equals count plus 10, because then it wouldn't know to re-render. You want to use that set count, because that's going to tell it, okay, I know this is a state setter, right?
Mhm.
And then it's going to go, okay, it's updated. I'm going to re-render that to show the correct one.
Yes, correct.
Is that why you have a constant form of it? Just keep it.
So it's just declaring it, right? So what is, you'll see this in the future as well. So it's declaring it. So what this use state is structured as, the use state has that count, and then it has the variable to basically almost like a function. It's basically a function. The set count is basically a function. So you're declaring that function as well as set count. And then, so it's a function, and then the value inside that is basically your prop, right? So you're passing it down, and it's gonna do that. And what it's telling that use state, that state to update on your page wherever you're rendering it, right? So it's kind of is along the lines of like how when you're declaring your props, like destructuring. So this is a form of destructuring as well, right? Because this use state function is taken, it has those props, so it has the count, and then it has that set count. Does that make sense? It's gonna take some getting used to for your head to wrap around. Like you'll probably know how to do it before you like fully understand it. So you'll know like, oh, I should use this and that, but you might not be able to fully explain it, which is okay, right? So we're trying to do our create. Create a div.
You can still have like regular variables in this too. You can have lets and consts. Those just won't affect the re-render in the page. So not everything has to be a state variable.
Yes, correct. So this is for items that you intend on being used or using to render, what's the word? What am I trying to say? These are for items that you intend on updating live on your page, that you, once it's updated, you want to see it reflected immediately. Okay, so at the very least, we know we're going to need to display our account. And then we know we're going to need a button to update our account. So one thing we can do is, instead of having to, oh yeah. So we can create a function that updates our count fours. And here, we're gonna do an arrow function. Okay, it's not rendering. Does anybody know why?
Put it in the webpage.
Correct. We have not imported it. All right, so we got it. Now we need to update it.
Notice that it added the import statement for him automatically.
Mhm.
But oh, it did,
Yes.
oh,
Oh,
go back to the body.
yes, gotcha. Yeah, so,
And it'll try to, like, if you misspell something, like, it'll try to import it for you sometimes, and it'll be like, misspelled, like, you're like, why is it there?
mhm. And another one, let me see if he'll do it. It's not gonna do it. Yeah, I was hoping that it would error out so I can show him the button. Where is it here? It ended with- hold up. That's interesting. Okay, normally, it would error out, and then it'll tell you that it's when there's an error, let me see. Let's see. You have so when there's a quick fix available, normally it will recognize that the counter is not being imported, and then it'll give you the option to import it. With the quick fix, like you'll have a quick fix, it'll have a drop down of options that you be able to quick fix, but they did not give me the option. My VS Code wants me to fail, so. Yeah, it's just like, yeah. Okay. So go back to our counter component. So we need to add the on click, and then remember it's camel case with 3 at. And then we're gonna do our increment count. See, we add our increment count and it's updating as expected. So our youth state is working. All right. So now, what is our next step? Because now we want it so that when we refresh our page, it returns the previous value that it had. So what way will we do that?
The way to call back to state that initial.
So oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Sorry. And if I'm getting ahead of myself, just tell me to slow down. Don't worry about trying to keep up with me. Just let me know that I need to slow down. That's perfectly fine.
Proteins, everybody proteins.
Yeah, okay, I didn't say all that now. I thought that's what. I'm gonna see something in the corner of my eye and I'm gonna have a over dramatic reaction. It's not you throwing things, it's my reaction. I'm dramatic sometimes, you know. Is it not working? It's working now. Of course.
I want a better like basic. Something like that. Is that when you use them? You like that? Yeah. What's around?
Card, take it off of there.
Yes. Yeah, you did do that.
That guy is perfect too.
Oh, instead of, yeah, you would, instead of the export default function, you want to use export default.
That's the G.
Now, for whatever reason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Export default.
That's where-
So you would have Yeah. Or not, you can put it anywhere.
Just say,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that just.
So that we, the counter is a child of the body.
Yes.
This is something that.
So anytime you call a component, it's a child of wherever you call it.
It's being used by. So now the body can pass down whatever it wants to the counter.
Yes.
Can the counter pass something to the body, like a prop or?
You can, yes. Yeah, you can pass things from the parent to the body. I said parent to the body. I meant from the child to the parent, yes, yes.
I'm just gonna call that the component there, or we just remember to do it.
So it would have to return a value That's something we're gonna get into, but, cause there's the way you do it, so, cause you can declare a function in the parent, and the child can use it in return a value. Yeah, and you can, yeah, and the child can use that function and return a value as well. So there's a way to do it, and you do it through the props as well.
We have one over there.
Huh?
So we have one over there.
No, we have one over there. That's something we're gonna go over. Once we're a little bit more familiar with using things, then we're gonna get into that, because that's more of that's something we're gonna do. We're gonna use context, so it's gonna be part of your homework. And then we're gonna use that, and then passing information to a child and returning information to the parent.
When they come in the cards, they get that key. The white button key. They gotta pass it. I'm not sure. Oh, you have one. You're good. You're good. I have one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yes. She just didn't have it counted up. She was in there. They're not senior.
Oh, okay.
But you got it. You're good. I don't know if you've explained it.
I think we did, because I think you mentioned it as well last week too. Yeah. I think they'll, I believe, I don't remember. Because sometimes it just won't, it's like it has unexpected behavior, because sometimes it won't render. Sometimes it'll render and give you error, so it depends. And I think it also depends, like, if you're using like Next and just basic, yeah, so. All right. We all good? Are we still working? Okay. All right. So this is gonna go back to the use effect and the local storage that we talked about. So we are going to, we're gonna want to store, let's see. Let's do use effects first. So we're gonna go ahead and use our use effect, because we know we're gonna want to store our account. Every time it's updated, we're gonna want to store that value on the local storage. So use effect is gonna have that, the close parentheses, open close parentheses, arrow, and then the curly brackets. Function. Okay. So for this one, we are going to access the local storage. As you can see, it auto-filled for me. And then this just translates basically to the window dot local storage. Oh my goodness. Accessing that local storage API that's built into the browser. And then we're gonna do the, you can see it has the, it brings up the values for you. So you're gonna set an item. And as you can see right here, it gives you laid out. So the first one is going to be the key. So it's a key value pair, right? How we set up our objects. So it's going to be basically your local storage is just basically going to be like an array of objects. And when you set an item, it's going to create a new object. And the first value is going to be the key, which is going to be the name that you're going to give for it. So it's going to be the count. And then the value is going to be the value that you set. That's going to be set to that value, right? So every time we set an item, if the key doesn't already exist, it's going to create it. And if it already exists, it's just going to update it. It's going to replace it essentially, I should say. All right. Now, is this it for our use effect? Are we missing anything? Yes, our dependency array. So this is going to tell it what it's going to be watching for. So if we're storing our account every time it's updated, what would go in here? In our dependency array. If we're updating our count every time, if we're storing our count every time it's updated based on our use effect, what are we wanting to watch for? What do we want to monitor? What value? The count itself. So we want to, so for our local storage set item, if we're setting the count, at the point of the use effect is to store the account every time it's updated. So the keyword is like every time it's updated. So the target is like we're monitoring every time the count is updated. So we want to watch the count itself. Every time it's updated, we want to store it. So that's going to store it. So now we're storing it, but now we got to go and grab it. So we can do another use effect for that. I want my grab. Same setup. And we can do declare a variable called stored count. Well, we got to declare it first. Cons stored count equals. It's going to be local storage dot get item. And then for the get item, it's just going to be the same key that we use to set that value. So we use count to set it. So we'll use count, which is a string. You're gonna make sure you put it in as a string, and we're gonna do count. And then you also gotta remember, this is JavaScript, so it's case sensitive. So if I was to use like a capital C, then it wouldn't recognize that key and it wouldn't go and grab it. It'll think we're looking for another value or another key value pair. So we got a store count. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and set our dependency array because we want this to run, the empty dependency array is gonna run this use effect when the page is loaded. So on page load, it's gonna run. Now, so we got our store count declared. What else we doing to do? So we're going in, we're accessing our local storage. We're getting the item with the key of count. What do we need to do with the item now? Yeah, so how will we display? What do we need to, we have something that's already being displayed. So we need to set it as our count. So we have, our count is currently set at 0 on page load. So we need to update it to where it is going to equal the stored count. So we're gonna do a set count. Yep. And then store count. Make sense?
I'm gonna go through the flow one more time.
Yep. We're gonna go through the flow one more time. But first, let's make sure it even works. Oh. We're gonna see. Uh-oh. Let's see what happens. Okay. I done broke something. So it was working. We got an increment plus 1, 0, count plus 1. Oh, I know what to do. I believe this is it. Although that, I feel like that shouldn't cause it. Yeah. What did I mess up on? I got the store count, set count, store count. So it's doing.
Leave everything.
Oh, I know why. Because I know why. Because so that's the intended effect. It's because. Wait, is it because of that? What are you gonna say?
I think everything in local storage is sort of string. So you're bringing down count for local storage. As
Yeah.
a string one, and then it's just adding that to the number.
Yeah, there's a string. Yep. So if you remember from my demo, we had a parse it in there. So yeah, so indicator for that, it would be if you try to add a number in a string, it's just going to append the value basically. And then it should. Oh,
So just like whenever we were sending stuff to our server, we had to stringify it. When you put
No,
something in
why?
local storage, it gets stringified. So when you get it back, you need to turn it back to the network it is you're expecting it to be. Not necessarily, if it's not a string, you can store strings as well, obviously, but if you're expecting it to be a number, or maybe you put an object in there. You can see local storage in the browser, right?
yeah. In the what?
Maybe, maybe application.
In the application?
Yeah.
Oh. There it goes. Count. Yeah. So under in the dev tools under application and doing storage, we go to local storage, drop down, and then click on our application. You see it has the key, the count, and then the value 4. And then is it resetting? Am
I
I?
wonder what websites track.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it should. That shouldn't matter. Interesting. What am I missing? Oh, I knew I was forgetting that if statement. So the if statement should fix the issue. Use effects are pretty weird. So let's see if this fixes that issue. Mhm. Ah, I know it's getting something. Six. Okay. You know what? Huh? For whatever reason, am I thinking of something else? I must be thinking of something else, huh? Because it's not saving the local storage. Well, it was saying it, but it should persist on refresh, right?
Yeah.
But I don't see anything that would be refreshing the local storage. Maybe I do nothing. Is there anything that will? Because It'd be easier if it was like a function, like something that would need to like prevent default, but I feel like it should be persistent, right, on local storage. Let's see. Okay. So with the issue with the local store, let me make sure. Let's look this up. So our issue is that our local storage, I'm expecting it to persist on, so it's supposed to store on a client's system and then on, like when you come back to it, it should access it, whether you leave the page and come back or you refresh it, that local storage value should persist, which means it should remain even through a refresh or something like that. So I'm suspecting that it's somehow the use state setting the count. I'm suspecting somehow the use state is setting the count. Maybe after the store value, and then that's why it's being set to 0. So you might run into issues like that where, because that's a pretty common issue with use effects is their timing. So it gets a little crazy. So we could even try. No, because then it's gonna do. Let's see. We need to. Let's see. I'm not entirely sure what this issue would be. So we could go to some good old AI. Let me see. Actually, let's do chat GPT because I remember that. So I like to ask why. I put my code for an example. Nope. How did I do it? I do conditional. Okay. So it should be persisting, but I'm not sure why it's not, because that code is
So. This works. So basically, in the use state.
Doing the, yeah. Yeah, that's right, we're gonna have to.
Use effect if there's not seeing anything in.
Just have the store, okay.
Basically the zero in.
That's what I was thinking. On the. Always do that. Ah,
It's not even that.
oh, it does not, oh, that's the. Getting ahead of myself.
Just using the one to set it.
This is the one I said, yeah,
So I don't need that first one.
yeah, not special. Okay. So, yep. We're getting not a number. Store account.
Have the auto number, you can clear it in the storage and then refresh
Um,
it, fixed it.
Yeah,
The process is picking up your comment. You delete that entry in local storage. Then it'll reset to zero the first time you refresh it.
I didn't even test it. There it goes. So what was likely happening is when the page was refreshing, it was setting the use state first to a 0. And even though it was initializing that value, that use state was looking at it. So it was setting the local storage to 0. And then, so our initial use, the one that was going to grab the value was probably, you're seeing it change to that 0 like that, probably because it was set at the store value and then immediately updated to the new value of 0. All right. I'll let y'all catch up on that, and then it looks like it'd be a good time for a break.
What did you change? Took out the 0 from the use case?
So the whole use state, we put our code that was in that use effect essentially, and then we made it return a conditional value based on whether we have local storage value or not.
timing and react is really important. Figuring out, okay, when is it gonna re-render, what's gonna trigger that re-render? What's it, the state gonna look like at that point? And then get situations like this, be like, it should be.
It's not. Market, not like that. So.
Go to the webpage, and see how it's working.
Yep.
Now, even if you refresh, it stays
Yes.
with the current time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You got rid of the if statement.
So we got rid of that whole use effect that was attempting to call the local storage. And then we replaced it with the some logic in the use state itself. Yes.
Somewhere that wakes out, I know like it doesn't matter where in your code, like physically you're functioning.
Mhm.
It kind of gets rolled up.
Yes.
Here it was running that use effect
Mhm.
after we set the state initial time for everything attempted to run the second use effect, even though it was prompted by the compression of press releases. There's no one that lays out what the logic is as to
When it was.
and the JavaScript tries to do certain things.
Yeah, that's actually what that's what I'm trying to find right now because it is a little weird because I want to say that the use effects are going to run are generally going to run before, I mean, not use effect, use states are generally going to run before the use effects. So that will cause like any value, any use state value that's being monitored by use effect is going to update because, you know, the use state is going to update and then it's going to trigger that use effect.
Chat says that hooks run in the order that they appear from top to bottom.
From top to bottom. Yeah, because I have, because what I see here, it says it's,
Like 99% of the time, you say something else. So that, in this case, would be why we put that conditional in the use state.
Yeah.
That's-
which, yeah, so either way, like in any order you put it, it's still gonna have the same effect because you put the use effect before. And it's just gonna, then there wouldn't be a use state. Yeah. I don't know what I have here. It says it's the order of execution is the render phase. So rendering like anything that was set with a set state. and then the commit phase, so where it updates the DOM, and then the effect phase where it starts using the use effect hooks. So it sounds like so yeah, so what it sounds like is when that use effect that's monitoring the use state, it updated. So it did the use state, and then the first use effect. Well, cause no, it didn't matter what order I put the use effects in, it still didn't work. It's React. That's just React stuff.
That's the man.
So, yes.
Your decision. So it sets a name. And so, what you need to know is you can record, this is. But if you're like, hey,
I had several,
on the desk.
I'm really good.
You would.
So this is using your computer's local memory. So it's saved on your computer. So when you like if you were to leave the page and then come back to it, it's gonna say your browser will say, oh, what did this website store on this screen? Look where it's like, okay, first of all,
So they're not gonna see. Sorry. What are some real world?
Some real world uses for local storage. So it could be, for instance, going back to our coffee shops. So if you wanted to save their cart without, this could be like if you want somebody who didn't have an account for your website, you want to save their account, you can save their cart. And that way, when they come back to your website, their cart will be saved based on their local storage. And then that's one. And then what else? You could do, like if you want to save their local search history, you could do that as well, store their search history. So those are some examples of like real cases. Like for a lot of times you'll see it like when you don't want to have to require somebody to have an account to have some type of some history within your website. And it also a good way to save your own memory. Like if you have in a database, instead of having to save all these extra search histories, you can just do it on their, use their memory. So that way it's stored on their machine. So you can save some space on your database, which it in term is saving money. So so cookies are a little bit different. So this is cookies are for tracking, right? So this is for like actual like having a value and then going accessing that value in the memory and returning it and using that data. So cookies is just like tracking like what a user is doing and like where they're access like things that they're accessing and breadcrumbing and stuff like that. So
I think cookies is under that same part. You see it there?
mhm.
I think there's cookies and session. Yeah. That's, yeah, it's all about, like they're saying, tracking, storage. So they all do a little bit different.
Yep.
But if somebody logs into your site, you give them a session token, and that way you know, okay, they're authenticated to the site. So the next time they come back, if that session token is stored, you're like, oh, okay, log right in. And as far as local storage, like one of the most basic things you do is just get their name. So that way every time you come back to the site, you on the browser, you say, oh, hello. So that, maybe a little bit more personal. You always want to put their credit card data right there.
All right. Everybody good? Any questions?
Did you go to the flow? I know we got sidetracked.
Oh, yeah, I did not go through the flow. Okay. So here we go. So we got our page, or yeah. I think I should go through the component, the body. No, I mean, we're pretty familiar with that. Just the state, yeah. So we got our page is being rendered. So we got our use state is being set. And since we have some logic in here, it's checking, we're storing our, we're declaring our store count as local storage, looking for an item in local storage with a key value pair with the key of count. And then we're gonna return the stored count. We're gonna check to see if the stored count equals null. And if it doesn't, then it's going to return. So if this is looking for a truthy value, so if it's a truthy value, it's gonna return the parse int stored count because it stores and local storage stores as a string. So it's gonna return it. We're gonna parse it as a number. And then we're going to, if it returns a negative value, a falsy value, then we're gonna initialize our use state as a 0. And then we are going to have our count. So once we have our button, we're gonna click on our button. So when we click on our button, it's going to run this function, the increment count, which is gonna set the count to count +1. So the current value +1, which is incrementing it. And then our use effect, which is monitoring our count, is gonna see that the value changed. So it's going to run, and then it's going to run the logic that's within that use effect, which is going to be the local storage.set item. And it's going to set the key with the value of count to our count value, which is going to be transformed into a string. Did everybody follow that? I know it's kind of a bit. And then just so you're aware, anytime the use state is updated or changed to run, it is there is a re-render that is happening. So kind of like what Brian was talking about earlier with the use effect, the third one that doesn't have a dependency array at all. Every time there's a re-render with no dependency array, the use effect is just going to run every single time, which can lead to some issues, some unintended effects. So you want to keep that in mind. So that's what use effect is checking. So it's checking to see after a re-render, did this value change? So if yes, then it's gonna run this code and then if it's a empty dependency array, it's just gonna run on I said on page load, but you can consider it like the initial render. So if it's an empty dependency array, it's just gonna run on the initial render only. That makes sense? I know it's, like I said, it's a lot to take in, but renders, so you got your page load where the page is loading, and then your renders is like basically when the virtual DOM, so we got that virtual DOM, right? Which is one of the things about React, and it's basically on the back end creating your web page. So like when you update the account, it's updating it on there, and then it's sending it to the forefront to where the client can see it without refreshing the page. And that's basically a render, which is like a step down from, you can think of it as a step down from the page, like a page reload. So instead of actually reloading the page and getting all the effects of a page reload, it's just re-rendering everything that changed, all the changes. So that's how you can look at renders, if that makes a little bit more sense. But I know it's a lot to take in.
Something that really helps me, so you know about our console log, right? Where do you put it? Like, this isn't, your typical page, that's where you put it. So what I can do is put a use effect at the top of my page, and I put all of my state variables in that dependency array, and then just put console logs, like in the use effect, right? That way, every time one of them changes, I'm gonna see all of them as I go. And this isn't something you would leave in there, but something as for debugging. I'm sure doing my, you like to make one.
Yes.
And that'll help because every time that one of those state changes, you can see that re-rendering in the console. Because you won't see on the page that, right? Let's put it in display. So if I had, 7 or 8 state variables, I would put them all in there just the same.
So there goes. And that's console log is a good debugging tool. So if you're having, that's also something we could have done earlier, right? We could have put console logs in our use effect, and throughout our code, we could have put, you could see like you could put a console log right before your use state and then right after you declare your use state to see what's happening. So sometimes your code can get pretty ugly with console logs, but you're gonna remove those anyway because they'll never ship with your final code, or they should never ship with your final code. And then, so that's one thing you could do if you wanted to, for debugging purposes, is you can just basically console log everywhere. All right, any questions? No. Ready for a break? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. I think coming back at 12:50 would be good. And then we'll get started on the next section.
Yeah, it's part of the state, so they are. State owns and then they sell, most people will gas. And then proper state.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like. Auction.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. No.
Oh. Oh, I'm thinking of.
Oh, wait, actually, they did not travel. Oh, yeah.
The department.
Okay.
Ooh, practicing those options, yeah.
Like food publishers.
Yeah, yeah,
Never heard that.
they go live on like LinkedIn.
What?
And you like, they like just sit there and like, usually it's like a 2-3 minute video and they're just like, all right, there's this property that we have, and they open the letter and they're like, it is like, they're like blind bid, almost like you send in how much you want to bid, and like you send in a check with the amount, and then they're just like, yep, and then they're.
Okay, ours is a little bit more, I think, horrible. They actually go to like these cities and like, they do it like with every little book that they send in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I wanna go to that, I haven't been this year, the other day, let's go. Yeah, I want to see.
Yeah,
Very true, like, it's real large.
you said it's a part of the state.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're kind of co-workers now.
It's a little.
No, oh, yes.
Oh, okay. Which part?
I work in the application services.
Oh, okay.
So,
So it's more people with it.
oh yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, no. Okay. Sorry.
It's owns a very like broad.
Wait, oh, and yes, right?
Yeah, only yes.
Technically, like.
Yeah, it's pretty much the whole.
Oh, okay.
The most of the, so we're like a service, we're like service to all the other, just all the state agencies.
Okay.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
we're supposed to manage all like, the, like certain, like core services, like, so I work on the workday, so everything, like, it's just, the, governance workday. It's just,
What is that for?
it is the, call it, I can't even, basically like the HR system, like where
Oh, okay.
you do your time.
Oh, so actually I'm a contractor right now.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
okay.
6 months, so maybe that's why.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
like, I'll use my head.
Okay. For sure. I figured even at the con.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you're going through like a agency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 6 months and that's- So I'm actually not technically just an employee, but, yeah. I'm working for the state.
You're usually really good on.
Yeah.
Probably even, like, I'm assuming they're like state email.
Like, yeah. Well, I mean, I see a lot of people. But like, oh, yeah. I mean, I do have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, then I'm sure you're in our system.
Okay.
They use like Workday for like,
Okay. They probably use it on their side right now. Like, for like,
Oh,
excess
yeah.
money. Cause I do my time, whatever,
The-
my, the temp.
They give us.
Yeah.
I say they give us way too much access on Workday.
Really?
So, for, to see the whole recruiting process, like where they at in the recruiting process. And yeah, if you got an okay, like the email, I want to say it on Facebook or they account, like especially if you do anything, like if you put like if your picture for your email, then they use it, so. I mean, so
Yeah.
one of the things is because like a lot, like not your personal information, but a lot of stuff is public information. Anyway.
Okay.
So like they don't care to hide like what your salary is or anything like
Yeah,
that. So because you know,
that's true.
and then plus I guess there are justifications that we're developers. So.
Yeah. I like most.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So far, yeah, we just got that order. So we had like come back to the office order.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were fully remote? You were fully remote?
It was hybrid when I started.
Okay.
They were fully remote at one point, but then they went hybrid. And then the governor ordered all state employees to come back. We had arrangement, a flexible arrangement, because we have much space in our office, enough space. But they were pretty insistent on it, so now we're back in office spots.
So it was like instructions.
Yeah. Yes.
Cindy had to know this before I got there. The one guy, my coworker, he was in Purcell. He sit down like an hour all the way up to your bag. Yeah, it's pretty sad.
And a lot of our management, they have to come, they were 5 days a week anyway.
So they
But
have
even
to
though
go
they're
back.
I was like, it made me feel good to know that they were
Yes.
involved.
Business
Yeah, so-
application. This is what I paid for, and so it's like $115 a year. And, we signed mine.
Next year.
This is,
Surprises
Yeah.
people.
once you get it set up,
I figured,
they give you some account share.
it would be great.
And then you can establish what domain.
Not perfect.
So what you do is you'll have a sign in,
My second term.
purchase the domain, wherever, no matter the name change, don't matter. They have the name server, the name
Good time.
change server, and we can add it here. What do you come in on it here? It's not on the list.
No,
These are
it's a
all
proprietary, it's like a.
And so once it's there, you've got a domain
I do,
here,
yeah, like.
there's,
like,
scripts.
and
And
these
see on that.
meetings, you know,
It's on Oculus, so there's.
but, yeah, so. They also have, I also do like.
So once you're in soft Oculus, so you can install.
Yeah, it's reporting of the service.
Yeah, you can install this, and what, there's other things too, there's site.
We use,
different laws.
It's part of Workday,
Oh, okay.
reporting services.
Yeah,
So
all
it's
this
like,
comes
they
with
use like
like
custom
all
reports and
here,
stuff
so
like
it's,
that, so.
like anything you wanna play with, this is all open source, it's free, so you can build, any of these portals, you can build a website. I use Joomla, I use,
Server side.
Drupal and WordPress, I primarily use WordPress, you can use any of these. I'm gonna look and see if they're.
We use SSJ on server side also.
Oh, nice.
I'm not pretty much job I have, I
Everyone's pushing Power BI.
I've heard a lot of Power BI.
Yeah, like it's,
We might actually.
it's taking a, like, everyone that used to use Tableau, it's now moving over to Power BI.
But I did.
So Microsoft introduced a new tool called Fabric, which basically does the ETL for everything, so you can use Fabric as an ETL tool, and Power BI is so big now because basically you pull all that data into Power BI and it just makes it way easier.
All those builders.
Like all of this is like happened this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
because you got a little code.
Yeah.
For instance, code there.
Yeah, all that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
There are some
that's
that do
kind of
use
what
that,
I'm
like my
doing,
team doesn't,
so,
but there's several teams, several dev
I was
teams that
trying
do.
to, so like on this,
That loves.
this is in the back end of the C panel, have you seen this all document stuff? It's really cool, if you ever get a chance, if you can install anything, you know, even out there, I don't know, I'll run the system kind of like cool.
But then you'll hear more about Power BI.
Like share, house with, yeah, I mean, and you listen up, it just never, we have.
Okay.
My old website for just that, you know, so you can.
And see,
download and play.
that's good. I'm more worried about this.
When you get ready.
Oh,
to-
this-
I see that, I'm like, hey.
I thought it was this, that you were.
No, not
So
so
we
much
just
that,
go
we're like.
into install,
I don't know.
and then
So
I
how do
just
you-
enter whatever domain that I've got.
You just gotta go through your settings,
Like, these are all
and
ones I
like,
have
but like,
right now.
if you double click,
So,
like,
and I maintain,
two finger,
and so.
you can go to options. And then remove from.
Turns out the native WordPress.
So like basically all the stuff.
You
you
can
know,
install
is
your
staying
plugins
there.
together, but one of.
Yeah, when you learn how to use math,
That's how the one.
like intuitively, there's no.
Okay, okay.
I got paid for a
It's-
site, lady canceled.
it's friendly
me,
to
but I had
do
to-
this.
She didn't cancel me, she basically got paid.
I know, somebody-
And it
I look at somebody yesterday, I was like, they were
That's
talking
when we were
about.
giggling, but it was a pretty good little bump that helped me out this last year, but it's just turned out.
Every time I try to use it,
Sad, 'cause
like,
I wanted to go
when I-
back, but now I
Cause
can't,
I
so.
do a lot of testing on mobile with Androids,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, oh, I forgot to take a screenshot. of this.
I was starting to.
Crap.
do
And
it.
Yeah.
it's like, oh, wait,
Type of
Yeah.
system
how do I
for
see all my
her
apps?
company.
Like, I forget how to do that on
Yeah, I
Android.
was kind of
Yeah.
excited about.
But then you have different beef action,
Pop-ups
different
that are going on. and
screen sizes,
if
like
they wanted to go.
multiple different screen sizes. You got folds now.
That's not the landscape.
Like, I need to go a little bit more than I'm doing, to be able to get it just a little bit further, you know, but.
Different notification system.
Yeah, but that's.
Yeah.
So I just said,
And that-
my
that's-
wife is based on, but like she
That's a whole nother
spent,
problem too.
well, she spent. $7,000 and she spent.
Especially when people was like, they use it all the
Custom informed system.
Yeah.
Which they're gonna give you the.
So much
basically, you know.
But I will say
You're
that
on
problem.
integration,
Yeah.
you know, sure, no
I have an
problem, you
iPhone
know,
8
so.
Plus,
We're
so
going
my
to
iPhone
meet
is.
with them weekly.
So every time I
and
use
everything,
an Android at
and
work, I'm like,
after-
hey, this
I only
is
work
so
on
much
this
better.
about-
And then after, oh yeah, my phone's like a
So we
dinosaur.
offer them
Yeah,
this cheaper price, they didn't want to leave, she was regional, so they're like. It's more gonna be the same. She's like, "Oh, what's up for years, no way, so. That's why we were laughing, so I was like,
That's
she's like, is it what you did? I'm like, it can be.
Yeah.
You know, it can. But it's not like, if I had a real bad break, you know, or they got, like, when I came with the, PHP 8, you know, there was a lot of breakage and switch on the site, so that's where I had to figure things out, it took me a little while, but all curly braces that weren't allowed in code anymore, you know, and so it was like, it was a big headache to transition some of the things, which I don't understand, so, which I don't understand anyway, but hopefully, you know, it's a baseline. for them to do. That's all.
All right, it's 12:50, so we'll go ahead, jump back into it. Before we get back into it, does anybody have any questions in general about React? Any qualms, problems, confusions, anything like that? Outside of the, there's gonna be some confusion, but like anything that's just like really bothering you or that you're just really stuck on, or you're just having a hard time really getting the concept of? Nope. Okay. Huh? Oh, yeah, for sure. And if anything comes up, you got the Slack, don't hesitate to reach out. As well as, I will say, because I know like you probably, if you're watching like any videos or anything like that, today was a good example of like running into issues, troubleshooting. That's gonna be pretty much the norm for like just about every developer. So if you're like watching YouTube videos and you see they're just coding their way through it and making it seem seamless, just know that was them working on predetermined code and they're not making it up as they go. This is that was stuff that they, you know, had beforehand. So they're just coding it out so you can see how it works. So don't feel like that's how you should be at any point. It's gonna be a lot like what you were seeing today, trial and error, some things just knowing what some errors means and all that stuff. So just like I said a million times, it's gonna be like building muscle memory, getting used to it, and then knowing how to find things when you run into issues and all that fun stuff. And then real quick, this little application that we're showing like our little lesson plan. This I actually built this with React, using the things that we've been going over. So like the day one was with React using the basic stuff that we use for this for that class. So this one I have like a little side menu that pops out, and the show and hide menu that's being managed by UState. So it's being this little thing is being conditionally rendered based on whether the menu is show UState. So based on whether that's true or false, will this menu be shown, displayed? Otherwise, it'll just be hidden. And then these items, all of these are being stored in the use state as well, and then being mapped through to list out. And then the cards themselves that have the lessons on them, they're also being displayed based on a use state based on which menu item is selected. So when we select this one, it's being told that this one's selected, so it's going to display all the information relevant to that one. And it's similar to how our static website is with the card data. I have the card data set up for that one. And then I'm also using a use effect in this one. So for the syntax, I'm using a package for the syntax of the code. And every time a new menu item is selected, the syntax, that syntax code is the styling, the code that tells it to be styled is ran every time with the use fact, every time that state changes, the menu items state is changed. So just so y'all aware, this is like a basic example, like what you can do with React. So
Is each card its own component?
So nope, it is it's actually just one card component. So I got one card component, and what's happening is based on the selected item, the information that's being passed to that card is being updated. So it's just one card component, and every time it's changed, it's just using that same card component. It is just changing the data that's being passed through to it.
The props.
Yeah, the props. Yeah.
Reusability.
Yep.
That's all the code for that?
No, let me see. Do I still got it up? I can show you. So for day, yep. So I have my selected. So this is what I am updating. So when I click on those menu items, this is the selected one. And then when you click on it, it runs a set selection. And then it's a little bit, this application is a little bit more complicated than what you've been seeing. but it's a good example of what you can do it. So I got the lessons. So this is, so it starts off as an empty array. And then, it, on the use effect, so when the page, on the initial render, it goes and it gets my day 2 data. So, I'm storing all my lessons as a key value pair, like an array of objects with key value pairs. And then it's going through and it's mapping through and it's getting each one. So the lessons is gonna be the header, it's taking the header, and then it's setting the lesson as an array of headers. And then it's going through, and that's on the initial render. So then we have our handle selection code. So like that's when we click on it, it's going to get the selected item, and then it's gonna make it the value that was passed through at the top, which is gonna be the item that was selected. So we're updating the selected item, and then we're setting our show menu to false because we want our menu to disappear every time we select an item, right? So instead of clicking it and then the menu just stays there, and then you gotta click again to make it disappear, it just disappears automatically. So here we have our, just our JSX code, the day 2, and then we are using Tailwind to style it, so we have an absolute fix. So this is how we're keeping our menu in place on the left side, and absolute means that it's not going to, what's the word? It's not gonna affect the layout. So wherever it is, if there's another element that's gonna overlay on it, it's just gonna be either in front of it or behind it based on your Z index. So, and then the fix is what keeps it on the screen. So like when we scroll up and down, it's just gonna stay in that same spot. But, so as you can see, so on the on click is, oh, I don't gotta do that. Put that at the right thing. Oh, it's this one. Okay. Looks a little weird because it's wrapped now. But so we have, so the on click, when we click on our show menu button, is checking to see, so set show menu, checking to see what value the value is, and it's gonna make it the opposite. So then we're conditionally rendering. So it's just one element with some conditional rendering. The operand, the terror, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So so yeah, this trouble, so it's the same element, the value is just being changed after you click on it. And then let's see, and then so also with the class name, so you can also do, so we're doing the temperate literal with the backticks, and then we're evaluating, so we're doing the same thing. We're seeing if it's show menu. So if it's show menu, and if that's true, it's gonna be block, which is gonna show the menu. That means it's gonna have, and this is the CSS. So this is the Tailwind CSS. So, and we're in, as you can see, we're in a class name. So you can do temporal literals in a class name and make conditional values for that, so that you can conditionally have certain values. So like if you wanted if there was a certain value, and if it was true and you wanted your block to be green based on if it was true, or red if it was false, you can do that. So that's where this one is. So if it's true, it's block, it's gonna be a block element, which means it's gonna be display the block. And if it's false, it's gonna be hidden, which display hidden. So that in Tailwind is the display block and then display hidden. So that means it's gonna, that means, is it hidden? I don't remember in normal CSS if it's hidden or none, but it just means it's gonna be hidden. So which means it's gonna be hidden from the DOM. So it's gonna be as if it's not part of your code, right? And then the side menu. So the side menu is its own component, right? And then I can show you that real quick. So Prism.js is what I'm using to highlight the code, the syntax. So as you can see with the side menu, we got the data, it's on selection, and then it's selected. With the on selection, I can show you. I'm not sure if y'all seen this one yet. As you can see, with the on selection, yeah, I'm passing, see on selection equals handle selection. I'm passing a function as a prop, see? So what's happening is you're sending it down. So where is that? There it is. Boom. So we pass that on selection. So what I mean is we're passing that function through, and then on click, we're gonna do the on selection and then the item. So in this case, our item is the body item. Yes, the list item, the name, the title item, basically. So it's passing that, and it's gonna pass that item. It's gonna come back, pass it to the handle selection. So this is that selection. So this is gonna be that item. It's gonna pass it, and then as a prop. So now it's gonna use that prop, and it's gonna equal that same item value from that child component, right? From the side menu. So it passes that value back up. It propagates back up to the handle selection, and then the handle selection is gonna use that value as its prop and then run the rest of that code. Does that make sense? I know it's a lot to take in, but you can see like all you can do with React. And it's doing a lot, but with a lot less code really than it really could have been. And it's just showing you how you can modularize things, because with that, if we wanted to, we can add different things without having to break the rest of our application. So if we wanted to change, if we wanted to add a card to the side, we could just create a new component, add that card to the side. And the way these are styled, yeah, the way these are styled is specific to like this page, how I have them rendered on this page. So we can go to another page, call these same components, because this card is the same card that I used for day one, right? So oops, I did day two again. So from day one, it's using the same cards and the same data structure as that. So that shows you how it's modular. So these are literally the same components being rendered, but just in a different way. See, on this one, we're mapping through and we're creating a cart for each item. And again, that's just using one card component and just mapping through, and it creates multiple card components based on our logic.
The key takeaway for me on all that, it's a lot of code, kind of confusing,
Yeah.
right? But is that it's all about passing those props in that state, right? So that state is what's gonna make everything re-render or whatever they have. So it's that flow, that you go from your parent, you
Mhm.
pass, some props down to the child to do whatever, and then you go back up, you can send a function down, that's gonna send it back up. And it's all about that flow and then the reusability of the flow.
Mhm.
React stuff.
That was just to give you an idea of like, things you can do with it. there wasn't anything in particular that you're supposed to take from it other than just like, what it's capable of, in the, different use cases, like what you learned up to this point, and how it could be used, right? Uh, yeah, it is pretty cool. And then you'll be able to do a lot more cool things as well as you go on. And then, so our next one is we're gonna do an introduction to Daisy UI, which is a that's what we want to call it. So this is gonna be part of your next homework. Or actually, we can go ahead and work on it now. Okay, yeah. So I'll show you Daisy UI. So we'll go ahead and work on this one. Actually, that's what the plan was. Excuse me, coders. So just to show you, so you have something called component libraries, and they're like little libraries that you can access that you can depending on the library that you use, you can either install components directly from a Node package manager, or you can install one package and then use like predetermined classes, which what Daisy does. It has predefined classes that style your code in a certain way based on the component that you want it to generate. So it has its own buttons. So for instance, kind of similar to what you've seen with Tailwind, as the list of the so it got the class name, right? And this is the prefix. So it's gonna be the button. So your normal button, your button neutral. So these are like the different variations. So like the color, and then let's see what the button looks like. So this is you taking a normal like button or div. So it takes a button, you give it the class name button, and with Daisy UI's configuration, it's gonna make it look like this. And
Daisy UI is built on top of Tailwind.
yes, it is a Tailwind. Yeah, it's built on Tailwind. So in addition to using like button, you can use traditional Tailwind class names as well. So what it's doing is using Tailwind to create these stylings for you. So you don't have to go through, and it gives you these predetermined stylings. So that way, like if you're going through creating an application, you don't have to worry about too much about styling yourself and getting hung on style and how everything's looking. And then I told you a big one that you would see is the card. You're gonna see a lot of the card. So same thing, you got the card. So this one's a little bit different with how like the prefixes work. So you got here, I'll show you an actual one. So the JSA. So you got can everybody see it okay? Okay. So you got so the last one, the button it was just the button and then like button neutral, button primary, secondary, and then it's just represented different colors. So here you have your card is gonna be your highest level div, and then you're gonna have your card body, which is gonna represent the body of that full card. So it's basically like using components within a component, but it's just being represented as the class name, and it's just being styled automatically. So what Davey is doing is handling that styling on the back end and that the structure of your card, making sure that it fits properly. So everything that you see here, because it has the card title, you got your card action. So like if you're gonna have links, it's gonna organize all, see, and it does all the styling. So all of that code equates to what you see here with the card title, the card body.
Did anybody scroll through Amazon or Walmart, like, all that's cards, right?
Mhm.
All those little images and that's.
Yep, like, and if you see if you go on something that has like a membership or subscription and it has different tiers, they're usually doing cards. So you see pretty much cards everywhere. So this is gonna be something that you'll incorporate into your next to the next homework. But I'm showing you this right now just because I just want you to have a decent understanding of how it works and the different things it has. So you can go through, look through all the different, because it got the button, drop down menus. Well, we're not gonna get into drop down menus right now. Well, let's see. So you can do badges, where's
So
the,
this thing UI is like a separate install similar to Tailwind, and we would do it within like the same one static folder. You'd be able to use these.
to be able to use these? Yes, you would,
Not
Tailwind,
right?
no, you would install, yeah, it's a package that you would install. Mhm.
You do need Tailwind to do it, right?
Right.
Yes, you need
Install
Tailwind.
Tailwind and then you install this, but
Yes.
it goes in that main folder like this.
Yep, so, and you can see it has a lot of different components that you can utilize and go through. And it's one of those things you shouldn't expect to remember everything and all that good stuff. This is something that you can reference, and you reference that documentation as needed, right, to create what you need. Some, depending on where you go, like, some developers, they're super set on like, you gotta, creating your own items. You're gonna have a button, you need to create your own button and stuff like that. But this is pretty typical to save time, because a lot of environments gonna be, you wanna save time, money, especially if you're working in an environment where you're servicing like clients, like business clients or something like that. It's going to be important for you. So that's one of the reasons why we show you this. And then it's 1:15. So we'll go ahead and install it. So it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to be used as a plugin to Tailwind. So it's going to be similar to installing it though. So you're going to go in the npm I, which stands for install, and then I don't know what the I forget, dev dependency dev.
No, a little, because you would need it in your production code.
Right.
It's not like testing. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Hey, Derek, could you drop a link to that documentation in Slack channel?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Of course.
It says, dev dependency.
Dev dependency.
It compiles it to Shell.
don't think so. I don't know.
Are we porting that to our app CSS or index CSS?
The same one where you do your Tailwind. And then, like I said, remember about the different frameworks when you're checking documentation. So Vikes for the config, because you're gonna have to put something in the config. It's just a Tailwind.
It doesn't like my plugin.
So you might be getting error on your plugin. It's gonna work if you do your app plugin and then the Daisy UI. It's gonna work. It just does that because it doesn't recognize it as a recognizable. So if you get the orange squiggly lines on this plugin, that's perfectly fine. Since we already got Tailwind set up.
This UI kind of reminds me of Bootstrap. And then it's got-
That's, I love it about this.
Yeah, so Daisy UI is so like you can have that familiar Tailwind, for, you know, if you're used to Tailwind, but it's also so like you can get a component library, because a component library, it just has like, it comes as actual components. It just adds itself as a component to your project, and then you gotta use it as a component. This, you can just use a div and then use those class names. So it just makes it look a lot cleaner versus the traditional Tailwind, and then adding whatever you need at that time in addition.
Okay.
I think I did.
I could be wrong.
Change the color to the webpage,
You say change the color?
the background, not from the bottom, but the whole. Oh, that's good.
So yeah, it probably. Do you have the CSS code that was in your file already?
I deleted.
Delete all that was already.
You say background color change? Still got that BG red.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be if there's so if you have the code that was in there from when you first started the project from the React initialization, then I know it has some theming in there. And depending on your computer settings, if you have your computer set to like prefer dark mode,
Yeah.
then
I do.
yeah. That's why my cards are black, because on my webpage, on my Windows computer, they're just white cards. So my Mac is set to dark theme. Okay. Everybody good on that? Okay. So we can go ahead and test it out.
So we don't have to update that light, not config folder with the Disney installed.
No, so it's just having you add the tailwind. If you already got the tailwind, then, well, you should already have tailwind. So yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and comment out our counter. And then we're gonna uncomment. Okay, that's not what I wanted. I always hit the wrong button. Our card. Actually,
For you to comment on your key, you just show them that error. When you
oh yes. So yep. So when you map through an array and you're gonna render items based on that, you're gonna have to have a key prop in there, or else you're gonna get this error saying it should have a unique key prop. And the reason for that is because the way, so React has that virtual DOM, right? So it's gonna be rendering items on that virtual DOM. And there's a possibility that it might get confused and mix some items up, because I forget the exact reason why it is, but React can confuse itself if it doesn't have a key prop. So it uses those key props to match it up with the proper item to make sure that it's rendering correctly. So if something was to change, like if you were to change, like delete an item and you delete an item, it handles it on the virtual DOM. It might come in and it might be confused on the order of the items that were already on that page, and it could just cause some unintended effects. So that's like the very basic explanation of it. So it's just the way that React handles the rendering of those items. So that's why it's important that you have a key prop.
it's a very common error. I remember when I was beginning, like you see all the time, I figured out what the heck this thing means.
Yeah.
But that's it. You just need to put a unique value in the prop that's getting re-rendered, or that's getting mapped over. So in this case, you're using title, it's gonna be title, you use ID. You don't wanna say like, put a string in there, it's gonna be the same every single time. It has to be unique.
Yeah.
For each one.
Yep. So what is our card? All right. So this goes back to, so we have our styling right here. And then we're gonna go ahead and remove our styling from our div tag. So as you can see, it doesn't have that cardish look anymore. So we're gonna add a class name. Then we want it to be a card, so we're gonna have the class name card. Let's see. No changes yet. Hold up, did I? Hold up now. I don't even think I installed Daisy UI myself. Yes. Okay, I did solid. Okay. Okay. Huh?
Same thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I was just making sure I had it installed, and I do.
Oh, I thought it was installed.
No, no. Why is it still up? No. Okay, it changed it. Yeah. Hmm? The card?
Yours is supposed to be. It's supposed to be.
So it,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was getting, I was like,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
the car, is that the way it's supposed to look?
I was trying
Yeah.
to figure out what these images were that whole time.
They're just being a random fetch, yeah, from a random picture generator.
That almost looks like one of those pictures that is not a picture, you know?
Yeah. Yep. All right, so then our next one is so we're still in this style. So we got our card is using a figure tag element. That's new to me. So we got the div doing an H2 element, p tag, a div, and then a button in the div. So after our image, we're gonna wrap our current our header 3 and our p tag in a new div. And then we're gonna give it the class name of card dash body. So that's telling it it's gonna be our card body. And then our header is gonna have the class name of card title. Let's see what the p tag uses. Sorry. It's just a normal p tag. Doesn't use every class name. Okay, hold up. What is it on Mac? Then under our P tag, we're gonna have another div. And that's gonna have a class name of card actions. Make sure it's actions with an S. Yep.
Is it supposed to be changing front side, adding class names?
So right now it's just creating that what's the word? So it's the card, so it's just creating the subparts of the card, so it shouldn't be changing by much, probably wouldn't be noticeable, especially with as huge as it is. So we'll go ahead and give it a width of a W-96, which means it's gonna give it a width of 96. It doesn't equal, it's not 96 pixels. It translates to like I want to say a different value. Okay. And then we're gonna do a BG white for background white.
Is the order of that?
No, it's just the class names. Depending on your computer settings, if it might be changing your text. So if you change your background white, you might have to change your text black. Okay. Everybody got that? I think. So yeah. So in here, we have to add our shadow as well. So that's the, gives it that card floaty effect. And probably can't tell too much because we ain't got no margins. And no. We could do, Yeah, we can do an MX-2. So M is gonna be, when you see M is gonna be for margin, and then the X, or actually, we're gonna want it on the MY, sorry. Yeah, so it's gonna be on the X or the Y axis. So MY is for the Y axis, and then you're gonna give it a margin of 2. So we should get that spacing. See, now we got a little bit more space. And then we're gonna do an MX auto. That should work. So if you, huh?
Y'all didn't know you did that.
Yeah. So we got the margin on the y-axis at 2, and then margin on the x-axis at an auto. And then if you go back to your page with the MX auto, you'll see that it centered your cards in the middle of your page. So that's a common technique to center element items in the center of a page. So it's going to be in the center of the parent element essentially. So the center of it's the full width. So the margin's gonna push it. It's gonna push it towards a certain way. So margin left, margin right. Auto means it's gonna put like a meet in the middle, right? So that puts it in the middle. And then as you can see, it's kind of hard to tell. So the way that the Daisy UI card is set up, it's probably hard to see because the black background, but our card, we had the edges all around. This one is, or yeah, all around it. So this one, the bottom of it is rounded, which is how Daisy does it, and then the top has the sharp card. So that means that it is working as intended, and we got little cards. So then.
Yeah.
Go. Did you go to?
Yeah.
Oh, I know it's just a time for you. Is that? Not yet, you're not. Okay. Oh.
And then.
When it goes live, I'll send it. The whole Common Club website, and he hadn't looked at everything. Now it's filler incorporated from 2 weeks next. Well, I'll let you get that.
Then
You should.
okay. Go to the
That's amazing.
But I faced the.
Yeah.
I'm free. Some bad ones that.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Because, you know, they want to lie. I'm the guy.
You can,
Who's holding it?
is that, you still do some work?
Yeah.
Right before you get.
Yeah, I'm just.
Don't give up, don't give up. If you need help, I'll help you. If I can.
It was
I mean, you're using different tools
I
than me,
know.
but
I didn't know what do you call it? What last name should what?
a shared server, like a shared server, like that's like.
Oh, go back. When you installed it there.
It's on webmasters.
Oh, WordPress.
WordPress. That's in control.
You have a place that can install it easily, like I use Native and I can install it easily.
What is
so it's
your-
easy for me, but if you were to like have to run from the terminal to install it, it would be more difficult than what I do. Yeah, what's that?
You got 3. What are we missing? So we have a card.
Yeah, no, I'm still gonna do that. I used to do that first. That's how I was hired. I was already. They were already using that tool, so. I will.
Try to make Xing out.
React's really good.
Now you make some core. And then I go completely like walk over it. Yeah, like like this.
So this you don't need.
Yeah, you can reciprocate.
Okay.
Is it going
Oh, so.
This.
Yeah.
This thing. So it's just an application.
Oh, so the H3 is,
Oh, this is from CRE.
Yeah, it's gotta be a CRM.
Okay, yeah, because it's a the internet info, it feeds
Yeah,
into,
part line.
you can
So
like.
everything else is part of the car
Some of that's all this.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It gets really hectic in that. I've never worked with that. I worked with HubSpot. This is the goal. I'm supposed to get an invite to my weeklies, but I haven't got one yet, so. To help like this understanding and monitoring and probably. One day it's free and you guys have to probably should. There's also free service. I saw she started using Zapier, the Slack channels too, which is like those automation process, but I didn't normally ask, so. For a nonprofit. I mean, none of that, you just have one central hub and it does it all. I did, but it didn't record my voice.
It recorded everyone else's except for.
Well, I asked Kimberly about maybe doing it. She was like, if you wanted to do one, you could, so I thought I was doing my own. And like, yeah, and I'll just do a live voice point, pull and record it and I'll share it with her.
I feel like you got everything.
I might just do that.
Yeah, cause not.
Maybe, yeah, I'm just do it on my own, like if I.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you
Was it,
want. I don't know.
Tailwind working
Whatever you
earlier?
But I'm not trying to like, hog
yes.
y'all's spaces. No, I'm trying to talk. It doesn't matter. I figured, I did want my talk though, like on, like, for visibility.
Yeah.
And what I'm
And we
doing.
want that for you.
And so I'll probably switch my talk around, which is stuff from there from my point of view now, but, you know. Yeah. Kind of, that's more people.
Try,
Yeah.
so try doing it again,
I can just do a little.
with the, so,
You know, put my stuff out, just for visibility purposes, you know, so.
I wonder if you were gonna do what did you do with it?
That's what I've got an instance of solution, like I have a demo for my own stuff in WordPress.
You kill your. So, cause like.
She said whatever I wanted to
like, so
do,
we have to-
cause I asked her and she
Even though modules
said.
is-
Yeah, so earlier he did an NPM install outside, and so it did that with package JSONs.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe it's kind of the same thing.
I
But-
totally
It's
lost.
just between me and her.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here it is. She's like, you're on, it didn't record your audio. And I was like, yeah, I'd like to go ahead and get it to someone that's like a
Yeah, you're
recording of
right.
it, so
It's
it's there, it's
for
like
daisy
all
in
this recordings and stuff, whenever people go back, those come through, so it's like on the web somewhere. And she said, if you wanted to just record it
Oh, is
yourself,
that-
like,
I think
post
that's-
video.
Oh, let me see.
Close up the stuff.
Or we could try to do kind of.
Not-
So it doesn't matter, but.
So you can does it have, is that Daisy in there at all?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So,
whatever
I
you
got-
want me to do.
You can try typing it in manually.
Okay. Well, my main goal is.
Fine.
Yeah.
Here, I'll highlight it for you.
I think I would like the.
So weird.
I wonder why it didn't do it.
It may be because you were. I'm not sure.
Maybe do something like that, and then if I even generate whoever wants to join in and I'll just. And I can go in a little more detail on it a little more. Yeah, if that's okay, if that's not, then we can space that, do lightning and have another piece.
Would it be easier for me to put it in the Slack?
Yeah, external
Okay.
backlinks, those things going on. Okay. I kind of like to talk to them. That's been the problem.
Okay, did I not copy it?
Okay, I'll- Yeah. And then I'll invite them. It'll be more like- it'll be like that. So I'll probably do a Zoom for both things.
All right, pop quiz. So for some reason, his would not install when we tried to do it, install to the command line. So we're having him put it in the package JSON. Why are we doing it?
I know that happened.
When he tried to install, is he in the correct folder? Well, because you're already pulling from, the app tailwind CSS.
You don't want to.
And you have,
Nothing compliments, but everything all over again, because it's already available. So if you add it on, you just download that.
not really, just
One
try to
thing.
send it.
No.
Okay.
So
Mine, so it's
when
wrong.
you put, when you have your packages here, when you do npm install, it reads your package JSON to know what to install. If you do just npm install, nothing else, it's gonna come in here and read all this and install all of that.
Okay.
So if for some reason you're doing npm install whatever and it's not working, you can come in here and just put it in there and put the proper version of it. And then it's gonna read this. So like if you were to pull somebody else's code down, you're gonna work on, and you run npm install, it looks in their package JSON to get all the.
See, you'll see that there, it's always, it could be something so silly as that.
Makes sense?
Well, then in the, I just have a question, that makes sense, but
Okay,
in
and
the,
then do,
in the
uh,
package
Do
JSON,
run, so run.
We have
run-
the, like,
Do npm install
add-
real quick.
light.js /plugin dash react and then the version number, but with Daisy, you don't have to have an app.
You shouldn't have to.
Yeah. Under like the dependencies. Why do some have an at and some don't? Let me ask
Oh,
that.
like the app.
Yeah, why do some have an at and some don't? Cause then it seems like it would be going to that specific
It just,
folder.
it just depends. So, remember when I mentioned last week about the, import aliases? So it's just like the import alias set. So instead of using the relative path or anything like that, it just uses like the direct, that direct path. So, and then like, if you notice that some of the, oh no, these are the damn things. So the, like when you were installing, like when you install the package, like the Tailwind Byte one was at Tailwind CSS/Byte. It's just the way that they set the package up, and it probably has something to do with the import aliases. I'm not 100% sure why they do different packages like that, but I can look into it and give you some more information on that. But I'm pretty sure it has to do with the import aliases. So like when you're going in and importing it into your project, like into like a component or something, you're just, instead of doing the, having to do the, like you'll be using like the relative path. And it's usually for, I'm not sure what the reasoning might, it could be like a preference thing or just like a way to differentiate certain packages or way to notate, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So,
It's package based. depending, right?
Yeah.
So when you go to NPM and you're looking at different packages, some of them are gonna use the at, for like I'm saying, just within the package,
Mhm.
it'll be that relative or that alias path or whatever.
Yeah.
Some won't.
And is that
And I-
that arrow up being just like the most updated version, if that's what we're installing, is the most updated version, or will you specify the specific version here that you want to install?
So, yeah, it means the most updated.
latest.
Sometimes, depending on what, so at work, our React is behind.
Yeah.
So that we have to have specific versions to work with that React.
Yeah.
If we were to go in and update React, a lot of it, right?
Right, yeah. That's what I was wondering, so you would remove that up arrow if you needed the specific version that you're trying to install. Okay. I was curious, because you just were saying that because his would install, you had to go into the JSON package and put it in there. That's why I was wondering if the app mattered or not, and then when you did, depending on what version you're trying to get.
I want to say you typically see the at when it's like, so like you have the, like the byte, so it'll typically be like kind of like a secondary, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
Like, yeah, secondary tailwind.
yeah, like to, like additional packages for that main package or something like that. Like, so, yeah, like, I don't know how to, there's a better way to describe it, but
Tailwind has that too.
the Tailwind?
Yeah,
See that, so that's the Tailwind CSS byte, what's the regular Tailwind? No, because we have to install Tailwind and Tailwind CSS byte. So I think it's just like, maybe, I don't know, maybe like configurations or something. I wish I could tell you. Like I said,
Sorry.
I like to speculate and guess, so.
All right, don't write my brain. I've had enough.
Yeah.
It's good.
Oh.
And where are you?
Next week, after class, we have a speaker.
Who is?
She did the, oh man.
Tasha?
No. The resume.
Stephanie Leeser?
Yes, yes.
Juan? Yeah, she's awesome.
So we don't protect resumes.
We're doing my son's graduation party next Saturday.
Of course. Y'all have a good rest of your weekend.
So I'm like, it's only 2 hours, I haven't decided yet, but if I can get her recorded. Yeah, we're supposed to. Well, I don't want to miss, but I've already planned his party and to where everybody in the family, he's had to not to follow it.
Oh, yeah. We'll do it.
Bless
Because
you.
it's, yeah, it'll go in your text.
Bye, guys.
Pick that up.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great job, y'all.
Thank you, appreciate you.
Yeah, because that tells
Right.
you the package JSON, and you get all those packages. Yeah.
Water.
What's up?
So my mouth is dry.
Oh, yeah. Couldn't do it. All right. Oh, something moved. Oh. never mind. You got no errors? In the console?
Yeah, I wonder if it has to do with the entry thing, 'cause it should be working.
do, on that same line, just do, instead of background white, do like background black.
Your stuff auto saves, right?
Yeah, same picking up that. Stepping up the next auto. Is it picking up any of it?
I have to see if it was being overridden by another style, but.
Um,
So they do,
go back to the photo. Is that the, that's the only one you have running? Right? Or just go ahead and close it. So it's out of that one, let's start.
Have a good weekend, guys.
you too. Just click this again.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. Tailwind. Is the tailwind itself?
Towing not even listed as dependency, is it?
Nope. That might take less. Alright, clear server again.
So we need the Tailwind,
Yeah.
the Viking. Did you install Tailwind? Well, you,
Earlier, but maybe when I did it in the other package, maybe.
Might have went out before. To do now, that's true. Alright,
I would just, yeah, you probably, yeah, just install it.
Yeah, it's not installing your application. So I think it's. Yeah, throw it in there. Cause it should have showed up in dependencies right here. Oh, it should have popped up. It didn't. Okay, grab it and Slack.
That's a crazy problem.
Yeah, you were installing stuff before. Other things we've done. I'm not sure.
It's probably doing that same parentheses thing. Does like the slot parentheses.
Oh, quotation.
Or,
He said.
oh.
I was like, I was saying parentheses.
Yeah, I don't know why I said. Quotations.
Yeah.
Probably the ones around the number as well. Oh, yeah.
That's great. Okay. Yeah, so go ahead, do your NPM install again.
Is. You check the no modules to see if it was actually installed. So it's in the alphabetical order, there's 10 of them. See if that's good. Right. Is updating the package law. There's also a package law. Yeah, one. Let's see if that is. Okay. I'm so confused.
Yeah, that's weird. Restart your computer. That's about where we're at now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to play with it. Are you trying like using like Chinese computer or anything to see what the issue of permission? I'm not sure because we didn't start doing this until we got to React. Really? Yeah, I'm not sure.
When we were doing server stuff, Visual Studio's good.
Is it ever good? So I'm not sure. Yeah. But all of it is like. I feel like I've had that issue before, but I'm not sure why. That issue I had to. I was having to write on some like folders. Right. So I was it's all good.
Good. Where you guys here? Oh, I downloaded it.
Have a good one.